You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons of the weddings and event industry. All this is to provide education and inspiration. And for anyone who's been following my story about getting engaged last New Year's Eve, I have quite a story about the engagement ring. I had ordered this just stunning ring from Zamir Kasim Fine Jewelry out of New York City. I want to mention them because they did an incredible job. And it went out Federal Express. I was going with my fiance to visit my mother down in Tampa, Florida. So we were having it overnighted down to Tampa instead of where I live in Maryland. And a storm occurred, and it basically got lost for 2 weeks. Can you imagine? Like this incredible, beautiful engagement ring. I wanted my mother to see it in person, score a few extra points there, and of course my fiance. And so, long story short, we got it recently. It is beautiful. It is stunning. I will certainly tell more stories as I travel on my path toward getting married, which will be occurring in May of 2022. So I want to mention, before I introduce this week's guest, that we are all going through quite a bit of stress at this time in history, obviously. Been going through that for a while. And so I put together a list of top 10 tips for dealing with stress, culled from my interviews with the icons of the weddings and event industry. To get a copy, go to theweddingbiz.com/top tips. Again, theweddingbiz.com/top tips. So last week's interview was with stationer Lisa Zachary. It was a really special episode, got into some really very interesting topics and very important topics. And so this week, I want to announce that my guest of honor is Richard Eagleton, CEO of McQueens Flowers, the internationally renowned luxury floral design brand and flower school founded in London's East End in 2001 with customers in Mexico, the United States, Japan, France, Korea, Kuwait, Singapore, Hong Kong, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Italy, Spain, and Australia. They have provided flowers for Vanity Fair's Oscars afterparty for the last 25 years and was the floral design partner for the All England Lawn Tennis Club's Wimbledon Champions Ball and the London Evening Standard Theatre Awards. McQueens Flowers also provides floral arrangements for some of the most renowned London hotels, and they recently opened a concession in John Lewis's flagship store on Oxford Street. Enjoy my conversation with Richard Eagleton. Hey, Richard, haven't seen each other since the Bridelux conference in New York City way before the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. It's a long time ago now. Feels like half a lifetime ago.
It does. And to think about how all of us could just be walking around with no masks and walk right up to each other and introduce ourselves. And it's amazing to me. It's so foreign now to think like that.
It really is. Although I've got a bit of a spring in my step this week because although I'm only just a little bit north of 50, I was vaccinated on Monday, which is
congratulations.
Part of a pretty amazing UK success story, actually. I think we've done 22 million people now, which for a population of 60 million is about a third of the population. So I'm feeling spring in my step, and the weather is very lovely at the moment. So we've got some nice spring weather in London as well.
Oh, good time. You know, it's funny. When I think about being vaccinated, I feel like I'm just going to be Superman, when that happens.
Right?
And have superpowers. Yeah. So
it's remarkable how it lifts the spirits. It really does.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to start by asking you, there was this wonderful quote that I saw in the Smart Plant app article back from December, and I wanted to get more into it, but I love this quote. It's so interesting how you frame this. You say, the power of flowers to lift our spirits shouldn't be underestimated. When we receive or handle flowers or plants, our brain releases serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins, chemicals that make us feel happy, safe, and confident, boosting mental health and well-being. That is so interesting to me. I've never heard anyone talk about it in that way.
Well, so this is you. So, you've dived right into a subject that I'm very passionate about, very interested in, and really it sort of stems back from before the pandemic. But what really focused my mind was being asked in an interview, a very serious interview, about a month into lockdown last year. I was asked by a pretty serious journalist, actually, as a sort of a follow-up question, really, a sort of flippant follow-up question, which was, so what do you think what do you think the role of flowers is post-pandemic? And my answer, quick smart back, was restorative and preventative healthcare, which I think goes right to the heart of what I think will become probably the greatest human global challenge arising from pandemic, which is mental health and well-being. The sort of state of our mental health and well-being is pretty shot. I think people globally recognize that this is an issue. And my interest in this comes from, it's absolutely true. When you receive flowers or you walk in gardens or you're in forests, you see growing things. Our brains release these three chemicals and they make us feel happy, safe and secure. So this is I think widely understood by scientists. But what fascinates me about the power of flowers is tying into something called social prescribing, which is becoming more and more popular. Great example of that is instead of going to a physician or taking a pill, you would do something that releases chemicals in your brain like oxytocin, serotonin, which make you feel happy. So social prescribing is doing things that make you feel good. Walking, hill climbing, cycling, walking in forests, doing things with flowers. And we have a big flower school in London and, in fact, in Seoul and soon to be in New York as well. And that the very act of doing things with these wonderful things that nature provides us with makes us feel good. And I think if we really want to boost our mental health coming out of pandemic, then we need to unlock our creative skills and do things with our hands. So take a bit of a slow lane. Cooking is the same. So things that make us feel good.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Again, the way you frame that, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. And I know for me, like during the pandemic, when I would finally go outside, take a walk, and just from slowing down, I was more aware of trees and flowers and the sky. I mean, and the architecture around me. And every single time I stepped outside and would take a walk and see this, I would always, always, always feel better and also be inspired.
Absolutely right. And I don't think it's any great surprise to me that clearly our flower schools have been closed for, the best part of 12 months. But we did open for a little bit in London last year, and we're opening again in May, and it's a sellout. It's an absolute sellout.
Incredible.
It was a sellout last year. So I think, then it's also about people wanting to retrain. We provide some pretty hardcore professional training to people. So people who want to be florists or want to get into floral design. But the uptake has also been enormous from people who just want to get out of the house and do something for themselves and do something creative.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, in terms of, clearly you have such a passion for flowers and I know for floral design. And, I understand that if I'm saying her name correctly, Callie Ellis founded McQueens in 1991 from a small shop front. And I'm curious, prior to you getting involved with McQueens, when did you, Richard, first experience this passion for flowers? Were you very young when it hit you?
Well, that's a great question. So I have always been passionate about flowers and gardens, and I'm a sort of keen amateur gardener. And you remember that I'm British, so we have a particular love of gardening. And I have a very small but lovely London garden, which I share with my mother, who's nearly 80 and lives nearby, which is very sweet. But I've always loved flowers. I've always bought flowers. I've always done things with flowers. Although I'm not a florist, I've never been a florist. So I'm a sort of keen amateur from that regard. But I think perhaps the most notable moment in my floristry pursuit was my brother's wedding.
Oh, okay.
For which I cooked and did the flowers and some other things as well. But cooked sort of a 4-course meal for 120 people and did all the flowers for that. The innocence of youth, of course, I didn't think for a moment about insurance, which my colleagues in the States think is just beyond horror. So I didn't imagine that anybody would get food poisoning and everybody survived. So, that was certainly my first trip to the flower market at 4:00 in the morning.
Wow. Well, how did you come to get to the point of being able to be brought in at such a high position with McQueens?
Well, so there's a bit of a corporate answer to that, and there's a sort of personal and passionate answer, I guess. So the corporate answer is that I've spent all of my career working for British establishment luxury brands. So some names that people might know. Waterford Wedgwood is a brand that people might know, or a group of companies. Alfred Dunhill is another one that people may know.
Yep.
Perhaps some that are a little bit more curious, less well known in the States, but Arga, which is a sort of a curious range, as my friends in the States call it, or Cooker as we call it here, but very establishment British brands. So all of my career has been, my passion, if you like, has been luxury brands, British luxury brands, with an international component. So I guess that made me an interesting choice for the business. I guess that made it interesting for them.
Well, but just to interject for a moment, what is it what was your position maybe it changed, but generally what did you do in those corporate situations?
So I've been a board director for very large companies. So I was a group marketing and sales director for a large PLC. I was marketing director, managing director, ran 120 retail stores in the UK. So I guess I'm kind of always what my team would call a suit.
Okay, right.
Although I'm a suit with a bow tie, so I'm not too much of a dreary suit.
I noticed when we came on, yeah.
But I've always worked in consumer brands in a sort of, and as I've obviously gone through my career in a sort of more senior position. So McQueens Flowers is the first flower business I've worked for. It took a bit of persuading. I thought, well, do I want to run a flower business? What does it mean? Is it a flower shop? But as I got to know the business, and I have to say, I met Callie Ellis, who is the founder of McQueens, who is not involved in the business day to day. She's still on the board, but we had a change of ownership for nearly 4 years ago. And she utterly captivated me. She made me realize just what a lovely business it is to be in flowers. And so I guess that was very important to me, but also we are privately owned by some very, very lovely, very ambitious and very engaging investors. We're on a mission to be an international luxury brand, and they that's what they want to achieve, and I absolutely love their vision. Yeah. So I guess I met a wonderful founder and some amazing people with vision for this business, and I have the great privilege of being able to make some of that happen, pandemic permitting.
Yeah, right. And connected to vision, is the signature of the brand. And as I was exploring this, I mean, McQueens has an amazing, obviously, reputation. But there was, again, I love how you frame things. Somewhere, I don't remember where I saw it, but another quote by you talking about that, you say, what makes us very unusual is the education DNA, which is about innovation, inquisition, pushing the boundaries. It's about a restless impatience for the new and the alternative. When you apply that to mastery of art, what you get is unique mastery of art.
That's right. I think we are not the only, we're not, I think we're an amazing floral designer, but we're not the only one in the world. There are some truly amazing and remarkable, we're in good company. So I'm always very humbled by the work of others. And there are, alongside that, some many thousands of flower schools in the world. A remarkably small number of flower schools teach creativity. They tend to teach a lot of copying or learning by numbers. But our flower school teaches about 60% of the curriculum is actually creativity. So it's it's giving students a rod and getting them to catch their own fish, not just teaching them how to copy McQueens, which is a broad church.
Yeah.
But what really marks us out is that we do what we teach and we teach what we do. So we have this large floral design weekly flowers installation business that sits alongside our school. And the school is this glorious, wonderful laboratory or hothouse where, we take the gloves off and we really let the students and the tutors do exactly what comes to mind. We get them to be as creative as possible. But of course, you can imagine, I'm in a creative management business. I'm in a talent management business. Okay. So a creative business is a delicate ecosystem, as I'm sure you can imagine. And creatives are never off duty. It's a vocation, not a profession. So the work that we do in the school is enthusing and exciting and inspiring to everybody in the team. So I think that to have mastery of your art, you need amazing quality product. In our case, it's flowers and other things. And you need skill, real skill, the skill of a florist or a floral designer. Put those two together, you get a mastery of your art. When you put the DNA of the school in there and the way that informs the DNA of our business, then I think that's unique mastery. And I think that's what makes us such a fantastic business and such a privilege to run. It's extraordinary.
I want to be sure you know the wonderful news of our latest show, Stop and Smell the Roses, with acclaimed lifestyle and event design expert Preston Bailey. Not only will he share the secrets, tools, and technologies behind his extraordinary ability to create a theatrical environment out of any space, you will also discover more about the man behind the magic. Preston will reveal how his focus on personal growth has been the root of his professional success, and you'll have the opportunity for him to answer your questions along the way. Plus, Preston will be inviting onto the show many of the star celebrities he has worked with in the past, so you don't want to miss a single episode. We also have another great show on the Wedding Biz Network, The Business of Being Creative, with host Sean Lowe. Since debuting last May, his show has really taken off, and he's continuing to bring you the creative business advice he's shared with accomplished industry notables. Be sure to take advantage of Sean's talkback opportunity by recording questions and comments from right there in each episode's show notes. So, if you are a creative who is turning your craft into a business or want to take it to another level, head to theweddingbiznetwork.com and take a listen to Stop and Smell the Roses with Preston Bailey and The Business of Being Creative with Sean Lowe. That's theweddingbiznetwork.com. I want to touch something here. You mentioned the creatives. It's basically 24/7, and then there's the business aspect. And I know, I think it was 2018 with annual revenues of over £5 million. Callie, as you mentioned, sold it to private equity investors and appointed you as the managing director. And you've got a team of over 75, at least prior to the pandemic, 75 permanent staff members. How, Richard, do you resolve that battle between the creative and the business? I mean, it's so hard. I mean, because, a lot of the smaller florists have that challenge of how do they integrate both? How can you be so creative and yet also run a business?
Well, so a number of answers to that, but I think and actually prior to the pandemic, we were pretty much 100 people worldwide. So that's a big family.
Yes, most
of whom are creative. We're fewer people now, I think, like lots of businesses, but we're still good sort of 70 people, 75 people worldwide. We actually employ everybody. There are a number of things that I'm very passionate about and believe in very strongly. And one of those is we need to employ people. We need to give people some certainty of income so that they can build a life for themselves, outside of work, whether that's having a family or it's buying a house or it's knowing that you can take 2 weeks holiday or so having a certainty of income is something that I think is a pretty basic human right. And in the gig economy, if you know that term, I sort of rail against the gig economy because I think it gives people an enormous amount of uncertainty in their lives. So we use very, very, very few freelancers, which makes our business model different to others. I completely understand that and accept that. But through thick and thin, through good days and bad days, we pick up the tab every month for the payroll. I think that gives people the chance to shine. I think it gives people a chance to spread their wings, to stretch their legs and spread their wings to reach their creative potential. So there's something about the structure of the business which makes that easier to manage because I'm confident that we are providing or trying to provide great work, great opportunities for creatives to do good work. So my job is actually to find the opportunities. It's not to tell them about the creativity, it's not tell them what to do. It's to find great clients, okay? I will make no secret of the fact that we've fired 1 or 2 clients. We've let go 1 or 2 pretty sizable contracts.
Interesting.
Because really, when I joined the business a few years ago, I asked the team to help me write a vision for the business. And I had expected a classic large business kind of vision that you would expect from a consultant that you pay a lot of money to, or, a lot of very clever people sitting in a meeting room on a seminar, working through this. I'm very pleased with, the result of 5 days away and some dinners and drinking and dancing overnight. That's a classic old style corporate away day session.
Yeah.
What the team came up with was absolutely brilliant, but it took me a while to work it out, which was best flower business in the world to work for. That was it. Okay.
Simple.
Introspective, introverted, if you like, but absolutely about our family. And of course, it took me a while to work it out. And then I realized this is genius, because there's my job description right there. So if the vision is best flower business in the world to work for, and I'm confident that if we have great people, then the creativity will come and the work will be of a high standard, because why would we employ people that can't do the job? So my job is to create the best flower business in the world to work for. So that is how I reconcile those two things. And my job is to provide the context, the background, the clients, the resources, the equipment, the space. It's the everything else. And I have also discovered something really interesting, particularly during lockdown, which is the thing that brilliant people like more than anything else in their working life is working with other brilliant people.
Yes, good point.
So if we just employ brilliant people, and I think we only employ brilliant people, everybody's pretty happy. Nobody's happy all of the time. I joke that I have a box of tissues on my desk and we seem to get through them. But it is this wonderful, yes, delicate ecosystem, but it is this wonderful ecosystem of creativity where brilliant people like working with other brilliant people and they push each other on.
Yeah.
So my job is about, pay and rations and resources. It's about heat, light, and water.
It's interesting the way you talk about this. So I have a music business and that does for weddings and corporate parties and fundraisers and everything else. And one day, I came from the corporate world. I used to work for IBM and Lexmark, so I still have some of the corporate world, Fortune 500 type of company in me. And so I hired a consultant, and we went to this enormous house. It was actually overnight. There were several bedrooms, and so I was able to work it out with my team. And the first thing we did when we arrived, it was at night, and we all cooked a dinner together. I mean, to start kind of loosening everybody up and get everyone to connect with each other. And, you talk about brilliant people enjoying working with other brilliant people. I wanted them to connect in this way. And then the next morning, we all made breakfast. And then we got, I forget what you call it, a whiteboard, whatever up in front of us. And the consultant came up and started asking all of us, because my job as the owner was, I'm just going to be one of the people for this retreat. And the consultant asked questions similar to what you're talking about, which was, hey, everyone, what do you all feel? Not Andy, but what do you all as a team feel that the brand is about? What is the vision? I mean, similar to what you're talking about. And Richard, it was so fascinating, like what you got from your team when they talked about, being the best flower business to work for. The responses and just the process by which we went through it to get to it was so eye-opening for me. It really affected how I ran the business and even how I treated people through that experience. And I think people listening here could really take to heart this idea of taking the people who work for us, putting them together and saying, you tell me, what do you feel this is about? What is the heart of our business? What can we do to improve it? I mean, and let them tell us.
Absolutely. From the day I joined, we have shared the success or the lack of success of the business with the team, with everybody. So everybody knows how we're doing. They know when we're up. They know when we're down. They clearly know how bad it was during pandemic. I'm sort of very, very open. I want everybody to feel invested in the business, emotionally and professionally, and to be interested in it. It's fascinating. It really is. I will say the other secret to managing a creative team is to have some really good people around you as well. I have a brilliant COO. He's an operations guy, and he's a genius at getting the business to run really smoothly, and he's definitely provides the sort of heat, light, and water that the team need, and that makes a huge difference as well. But yeah, and our customers, I mean, well, actually, because we're very, very significantly into weekly flowers in some very lovely, very beautiful hotels like Claridge's in London or the Peninsula in New York, or indeed, actually, shortly the Peninsula in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
And others as well. I've learned that we have to go every single week. It's a bit like Groundhog Day. Every Monday the team have to wake up and they've got to do it all over again.
Right.
They've got to be brilliant all the time because occasionally we're not brilliant, and we need those brilliant days to carry us through the days when we're not always brilliant. But what I've learned is our customers trust us to be creative. They trust that we'll do something creative, and they trust that we'll do what we say we'll do. So it actually comes down to people, and it comes down to a much more emotional thing. Do we feel part of their business? I say to people, we say to all our customers and to people, anybody who'll listen, really, we tell stories with flowers. And people say to me, well, what does that mean? Well, actually, it's about getting under the skin of our customers and really understanding their brand, and understanding that the flowers that we do, whether it's in a hotel or a restaurant or for a wedding or for whatever reason, is about telling our customer's story. It's about augmenting that and making it just bringing it to life. In a restaurant, for instance, the only two things that change, other than the waiting staff, perhaps the only two things that change regularly are the flowers and the menu. Everything else is pretty similar,
right?
Week in, week out. So we're one of the two bits of interest that gets provided in a restaurant or in a hotel, and I think that's just a great honour. But it means we become part of that family, and of telling stories with them and telling their story. I remember going up to a hotel in New York, a very well-known hotel, and taking some flowers with me to the person that I was meeting. I think lots of people will know it's the Carlyle, which is known as the Palace of Secrets.
Sure.
Hotel of Secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I took some flowers with me, and I gave these to the person that I was meeting, and said, "These are for you." And she said, "Well, thank you very much. They're very lovely." And I said, "But you can only have them if you can tell me why they're important to the hotel." And she said, "Well, I don't know. Why are they important to the hotel? They're lovely." I said, "Well, so these are white scented roses and blue delphiniums. These were Marilyn Monroe's favourite flowers."
Oh, geez.
And of course, Marilyn Monroe is a big part of the story, or allegedly part of the story of the Carlyle Hotel. So that's a kind of good example of telling stories with flowers. There's always just making a strong connection.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we have time to talk about getting through the pandemic and even not only getting through it, but thriving, even perhaps because of opportunities. And again, I love quotes, and I found these, wonderful quotes by you. So I'm going to give another couple here and do a deeper dive. So you said, and I'm sorry, I don't remember where it was, but you said, "We took swift and decisive action to cut costs, furlough 95% of our workforce, and conserve cash as I watched our sales plummet to zero. All strategy and business plans gone and forgotten. COVID-19 has given us all a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to stop, reflect, think, and invent." And I'm going to say one more thing, Richard. You also went on to say, "I kept a tiny team around me, and I've never seen them so much on fire and full of ideas, and we're using entrepreneurship to make it happen." Now, again, to recognize that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, no question about it, to stop, reflect, think, and reinvent. Can you tell me more about how that went for you?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yes. So look, never let a crisis go to waste.
Right.
I love that. I think that might even be an IBM expression, actually. But never let a crisis walk you by. Okay. So, I think I was asked in the sort of first few days of going into lockdown, and we went into a very hard lockdown in the UK on the 23rd of March. What was my advice for people? And I sort of thought, well, I better give myself some advice, which was, one was be kind, because it costs nothing and it always pays back. And the second was keep an eye on the horizon, because, the bumpy road to get there is easier to travel if you know where you're heading. And the third one was just worry about the things I can pull levers and change, and stop worrying about the things I can't. Okay. And I knew by day 2, I knew that this was an amazing opportunity. Pandemics are like teleportation machines. However it was going to end up, I knew that it would take us to a different world in some way. they are very real evidence of time travel, because every single one of us globally will say we are not in the same place coming out of pandemic as we were a year ago. We are in a different place.
Yeah.
So I had this very strong belief that we could get into this teleportation machine, or we could just not get in and get left behind. So we really, from day two, we kept, as you quite rightly quoted, and we kept a very small team who were on fire. We absolutely set about taking the business apart, taking the engine apart. When in 100 years has anyone in business had the opportunity to take every single cog and wheel and gear out of an engine and look at it properly and put it all back together again? This never happens.
Yeah.
So we literally did that. We rebuilt the operations of the business. We rebuilt the structure. We looked at who we were working with. We looked at the way we were working. We looked at who we wanted to be, and we put that all back together again. Meanwhile, keeping the engine just sort of warm, or at least being ready for action if required. And it was remarkable. In the space of 48 hours, our sales dropped to zero from many, many millions.
Right.
And by the way, that did that in 3 continents within 3 weeks of each other. So that was pretty hard work, sort of consoling 3 teams in three continents.
Right.
And then we started up our online business, which I will be honest, I've been honest many times about this, was a very small part of our business that we didn't really spend a lot of time on. It was always very good. It was always important, but it was just not a big part of our sales. Anyway, we found ourselves with online sales only for delivery. And that was the only thing we had. And boy, when it's the only thing you've got, you really look at it, and we looked at it really carefully, and we made it brilliant. We invested in product. We invested in just the way of working to make that amazing, and photography. And our online sales, online sales globally are up, 60%. Businesses that are sort of online, offline business, 60, maybe even 100%. Because the market has delivered that for businesses that aren't trading with bricks and mortar, because we're also a retailer. But we've shot through the sound barrier. We've gone through that sound barrier many, many times. So we've really, I'm so proud of the team because they've done that. I've done nothing except provide some resources. The team have delivered for us a legacy going out of pandemic of a phenomenally, wonderfully successful online business. To the extent that online business, very, very soon, within a matter of weeks, will be able to deliver, order anywhere in the world, deliver into 5 cities in the world, same day.
Yeah, incredible.
So we've been able to do those kind of things. That's been fascinating. And in the middle of lockdown, in the hardest lockdown of all,
right.
we also signed a lease for a very expensive building in the centre of a very nice part of London to open an international flower school and atelier flower shop right in the middle of lockdown. And we opened, we're open for a week and then went into another lockdown, and we haven't opened since. So
yeah. Richard, also, you had said also at some point, falling and zero sales are an opportunity to improve margins. I would love to know what you mean by that.
Okay, so this is look, I don't know whether this is a business principle or this is of my own making.
Hey, either way, okay.
But it's true. So, when the market stops completely, you get the chance to look at what you're doing and how you're delivering it. So, for instance, I'll give you a great example of improving margins is taking out waste and taking out distraction, taking out noise. So all of us, every one of us in business, from time to time or regularly works with customers that are difficult or annoying or unprofitable or challenging in some way, or just don't quite fit. But, we've had those customers for a long time and they're nice people, so we'll keep going. But when that all stops, you have a chance to build back the business that you want. So we had a very nice conversation with some of our customers and said, we're actually not right for each other. So that's one of the ways. The other way of doing that is when customers change the amount they spend with you, if you're on a contract and they're spending X and then they decide to spend Y, you get a chance to put that whole project back together again. So we can deliver the same level of service in a different way, in a more cost-effective way. So we can improve margin without reducing the quality or the quantity of what we supply to the customer. It's been interesting. And in fact, we will come back from pandemic able to deliver more with less, which is fantastic. Because our customers will get the same, I hope, great service and great creativity, but we will be able to do that more successfully for us and for them, which makes us a more secure, stable partner.
Yeah.
So it enables us to grow.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you too, where do you think, beyond what you've been talking about, with your own business, with McQueens and the opportunities that you've, made out of this crisis and what you're doing to change, in terms of just the industry as a whole, the weddings and event industry, how do you feel that it's going to change post-COVID? Because I know for myself, speaking for myself, there's so much that I am hoping that I hold on to, just the deeper meaning of what's really important to me. And like you say, in my own way, my personal life, my business life, I've made changes. And, again, like you, I've looked at this as the only way to look at it in a healthy way is what is the opportunity that this is giving me? And, and I wonder, what will this be like post-COVID?
So that's a really lovely question. And I hope, so I think some things that are certainly true is that we have all adjusted our horizons or broadened our horizons in lots of ways. We did a wedding for 17 people last year. A wedding for 17 people would have been considered a non-wedding. But in fact, prior to the pandemic, not by us particularly, but just by the world. The world just doesn't see weddings of 17 as a proper wedding. Didn't. It was the most beautiful, heartwarming wedding, full of autobiography, full of personal, intimate love and genuine storytelling on behalf of the couple. And I was asked in an interview in Korea 2 years ago what my advice to brides was. Okay, it's a very particular kind of question. And my plea, but more than my advice, was remember why you're getting married and introduce some intimacy and autobiography. Your flowers are not designed to hit the front page of a magazine. They're designed to celebrate your love and marriage. So just remember why you're doing it. Bring something of the personal, of the autobiography. Bring something that is perfect for you and something of your story. So what I hope is that we bring a bit more kindness and a bit more focus on remembering why we're doing these things, a bit more humility and humanity, actually. And also, I hope that we see that scale is not a showing off contest. It's about getting it right, whatever the size.
Yeah, I love that. It's really beautiful. Well, Richard, thank you for doing this. I mean, this has been such a different sort of conversation, for the show, but I love it. I love it that you have a very interesting perspective that I think is really important for people to also think about for themselves. So, yeah.
Thank you. If I may, I'd like to share one thought with you, which is about social distancing.
Okay.
I recently asked about the problems of social distancing with clients and how challenging that was, and all the mask wearing, and that was going to go on for a long time. I did remind people that we are British. We have been social distancing for centuries, so it's not a problem.
That is funny. All right, that's good. I like that. That's a great way to end it. All right. Well, thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Richard Eagleton. Check out their websites. There are two. The one for the UK is mcqueens.co.uk. Again, that's mcqueens.co.uk. Their United States site is mcqueensflowers.com. Again, mcqueensflowers.com. Their social media handles on Instagram and Facebook is McQueens Flowers. If you missed any of this, you can get it in the show notes at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues so that they can hear about it. And also giving a top review where you get your podcast from is also very helpful to the show and to have people find this interview. And finally, don't forget to listen to our follow-on segment, which comes out every Wednesday, called The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host, and together we tease out some of the highlights of the interview to deliver some specific tactics and tips to help you raise your own business to the next level. And next week's interview is going to be with Bentley Meeker. Bentley is president of Bentley Meeker Lighting and Staging. It was a real, just absolute elucidating conversation. And finally, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Kushner Entertainment. If you need the best entertainment in the world, completely custom designed for every single client, go to KushnerEntertainment.com. Again, KushnerEntertainment.com, and we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.